Whose platform are you standing on? Whose platform is this? You can hear me clearly. Let's wake up. Let's come together now.
On Friday, the 28th of July, my good friend Nathan Symington was sentenced to 2.5 years in prison. It was for misuse of a firearm and distribution of objectionable material from the mosque attack. Throughout this process, the police and then the media and finally and shamefully the judge have ignored the important context of Nathan's actions and simply pretended it was something else. This story is about that context. The objectionable material charge is 70% of Nathan's sentence, and that is mostly what this video is about. But it begins with misuse of a firearm. Nate first came to the attention of the police because of a video he made almost 3 years ago, around the time of the last election. The video depicted someone shooting a Jacinda campaign sign. This video was a mistake by Nate. It doesn't represent him in a good light. And this part of the story is a cautionary tale. I'm not endorsing this kind of material, but videos like this are not actually illegal in New Zealand, and certainly could be made legally. But the police took the view that it was misuse of a firearm, because Nathan didn't hold a firearms licence. And under Section 45, Paragraph 2 of the Arms Act 1983, the burden of proof was on Nathan to prove it was lawful. Unfortunately, the owner of the firearms that had supervised their use was unwilling to come forward, and to be fair, he had never agreed to. On the 15th of December 2020, the police arrested Nate and charged him with misuse of a firearm. They didn't find any guns because Nate simply never had any. However we judge Nate for this mistake, it is not the lead offence, and makes up less than 1/3 of his sentence. On its own, Nate would almost certainly have stayed out of jail. It is the circumstances around the lead offence of distributing objectionable material that need more detail in the public domain, and it is the way that this has been prosecuted that is ominous for freedom of speech in New Zealand. When the police arrested Nate, they executed a search warrant and seized his computer hard drives, and there were lots of them, as Nate had worked for years in IT. Amongst it all, they found a copy of Tarrant's live stream and an altered copy of the live stream. These two videos were located on an old hard drive, and Nate barely remembered they were there. There is no suggestion that Nate edited or distributed this material, and these charges would be dropped by sentencing. There was, however, going to be a bigger problem for Nate that would result in him being charged with knowingly distributing objectionable material with a maximum sentence of 14 years. And this is where the context is lost. It is this charge that is 70% of Nate's sentence, and it is those circumstances that need the attention of New Zealanders. On the morning of the 13th of March 2021, Nate and myself, along with a few other friends, gathered at the house of Omar Nabi. On that day there was an event being held at Christchurch Arena and also at El Noor Mosque to mark the 2-year anniversary of the Christchurch terror attack. Political VIPs were going to attend El Noor Mosque, and Omar had information that Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern would be there. Omar, like many of us, was offended that they made an event out of the tragedy, trading on the death of his father and the other victims for political traction. Omar had a bold plan, and we were there to support him. So Omar was going to protest outside El Noor Mosque, his mosque, the mosque his father was instrumental in founding. Omar was protesting the authorities, the police and the Prime Minister for the way they were using this tragedy. The slogan Omar used to communicate this was, "Whose platform is it?" Of course, the other members of El Noor Mosque recognised Omar immediately, and a few of them came over and talked to him, greeting him warmly. There was no tension between them, even though the circumstances were unusual. The police, however, were on edge, and their already considerable police presence was more than doubled just to deal with us. In the event, the officers that were assigned to essentially hang out with us all day were excellent company, and it gave us all a chance to build rapport. The Prime Minister didn't show up. Interesting to note that 1 year on from Omar's protest, and there was no public service for the Christchurch Mosque attack, at the family's request.
These are my father's famous words. It's my duty to wake up the sheep, wake up the people that are getting misled to the deceit and the lies. Where's the tinder going to?
Brother, how you feeling, bro?
Very good.
Yep.
You know, I'm happy that I'm doing this for a couple of years in a row.
Yep.
I'm happy that I'm waking up the people that are still asleep.
Yeah.
I'm happy for, you know, exposing a lot of people. I'm happy for the people that are listening to me. So this is a good thing.
Yeah.
And people try and use my own evidence, just like the police. Here you going, lads? My own evidence against me, you know?
Yeah.
And here we go.
Yeah.
That's what I like, right? Unity,
Yeah.
peace,
Yeah, exactly.
harmony, you know?
Yeah, exactly. We're all here for the same reason, isn't it?
Yes, that's my point.
We're here to tell Jacinda Ardern that she's an ideologue and she's not welcome here.
Right. But to use
And
my people
use it.
for this as an event,
Yep. Yep.
there's a bit too much.
Yep.
50 of my family members, brother, you know?
Who are the people lying to you? Whose platform are you standing on? Whose platform is this? Let's wake up together now. The media and control that's been tricked through the deceit and lies we've been fed. So you can hear it clearly. Let's wake up together now. The same people that you fought on, the same people that put you in the same hole. Putting fear to the people that don't get the time of day for being called racist. Well, the real Nazis are the government, the politics, the regime, the higher elite, The police! It's free for the people!
Obviously, a video like what you just watched isn't illegal in New Zealand. Nate's mistake was in the description, where he posted 2 links to sites that analysed clips from Tarrant's live stream and also looked at his manifesto. And that was it. That was all it took. 2 links posted in the description of a video that covered a victim opposing the official narrative and the shooting of a Cindy sign on camera. That was enough to get him imprisoned for 2.5 years on his first offence. There were no victims, no one in court reading out an impact statement. All there was a determination from the police, the media and the judge to pretend that my friend of Ngāti Tūwhare Toa descent, who on that day was supporting our Muslim friend who immigrated from Afghanistan, was somehow motivated by white supremacy and hatred of Muslims. There were Muslim victims of the March 15 terror attack in court, and the truth is they were there to support Nate and didn't want him imprisoned. But the police simply state in their sentencing submission that the purpose for the offending can only be inferred, when the purpose of the video is self-evident. It was about Omar's protest against the police. They then, with no evidence, state, and I quote, "The offending was committed wholly towards hostility towards the Muslim community, and that the purpose of the video was to communicate his support for the attack." There is no evidence that Nate has ever expressed hatred towards the Muslim community, or that Nate in any way supports the attack. Clearly, if you highlight police negligence and question their version of events, then you will be labelled as a hateful extremist, and that this imagined hateful motivation will be cited as an aggravating factor regardless of the evidence. And in the background, when they speak to you, they are supportive of your questioning?
They support me totally.
Yeah.
It's they support me to the utmost respect as well. That you know.
So when we're out front here protesting a few days ago or a few months ago, we were outside the courthouse, and people are telling us we're being disrespectful
That's
to the
right.
families. I mean, how do you feel about that?
Well, the thing is, I'm not going to stop feeding the truth. People need to hear it, and they haven't heard this kind of stuff. People that don't like it have too much belief in the system that is lying to them.
Yeah.
Okay? Now, there is the other side of the story. That they want to believe something that they haven't even encountered, haven't done any kind of homework.
It is not as if this context was kept from Judge Paul Keller, as Omar made a submission to him stating that the video is covering Omar's protest outside Al Noor Mosque. Omar states in his submission, "Thus New Zealand police have indirectly invalidated my protest as a direct victim of this heinous terror attack in doing so, and have removed the context from these charges. New Zealand police failed to mention the subject and context of this video, which objectionable links appear at the end of for 3 seconds. Omar also states that one of the websites is written by a former member of Al Noor Mosque. Omar concludes his submission with, "By silencing, punishing and marginalising Nate Symington, you are indirectly silencing, punishing and marginalising my voice and other victims of the mosque attack who question this event and official narrative around it." It is at this point that the telling of the story becomes part of the story. as I am unable to get a copy of the sentencing decision in what seems to be an orchestrated attempt to keep it from the public, or at least the election campaign, with the court not publishing it on the database like any other decision would be, and more disconcertingly, Nate's lawyer simply not emailing it to me after Nate asked him and then instructed him to do so in writing. Just after sentencing, I sent Nate's lawyer a text and he didn't even respond. I can only guess that was because me and Nate had told him I would be publicising the case. Nate eventually got hard copies of his documents almost 2 months after being sentenced. The following coverage of the sentencing is based on Nate reading sections of the documents out to me over the phone from prison, and me recording it and then transcribing it. It is also worth noting that I have not been supplied with a defence submission despite Nate's best efforts to get it to me, and this story is being told without that material. The final note on this is that a few hours after my phone call with Nate, he had his cell searched, something that isn't that common in the wing he is in. Of course, they didn't find anything. I don't think they really expected to. All that being stated, I am now in a position to quote the judge directly. The decision spends some time restating the police submission and looking at preceding cases. Then Judge Paul Keller goes on to discuss the objectionable material charge and that Nate's video 51 counts of accessory to murder was posted on BitChute, and I quote, BitChute operates under the guise of anti-censorship and free speech. Its video hosting service has become a hotbed for violent, conspiratorial and hateful video propaganda and a recruiting ground for extremists. By sharing the material you have contributed to the spreading of hateful propaganda, which continues to cause harm to those connected to the events of the 15th of March 2019. To be honest, a few of us in court actually laughed when the judge said this. It seemed so out of place, even comical. But the humour faded fast. The judge continues. There is no evidence to suggest that the recipients of the video were harmed in any way. However, harm was suffered by the Muslim community and those impacted more broadly by the attack of that day. First, I want to point out that the judge is talking about Nate's video here, not the links that he is charged for, and that the judge acknowledges that the video didn't harm anyone that watched it. Then the judge says that this video that covers a member of the Muslim community protesting the authorities is harming the Muslim community. How on earth does that intellectual position even make sense? And who is those impacted more broadly? The judge continues. The continued distribution of this material continues to cause harm to both those directly and indirectly concerned with the 15th of March 2019 attacks. So now Nate has harmed those impacted more broadly and those indirectly and directly concerned. This kind of language is a joke when it's on television, but here it is being used in a court of law by a judge in place of a victim impact statement to justify someone's incarceration. The judge then goes on to assign hateful motive to Nate, still no evidence. I quote, "The Crown submits, and I agree, that by distributing the links that you sought to glorify the initial terrorists' actions and continue to spread anti-Muslim propaganda and harmful misinformation." So Omar's friend that filmed his protest and made a video about it posted links at the end to glorify the murder of his friend's father? I wonder how many of you can see how offensive this is. With no evidence, They are literally just pretending it is a hate crime. Then the judge establishes the starting point for each offence. For the objectionable material charge, the judge reads out 3.5 years. It was at this point that Omar stood up in court in an act of defiance. This forced the security guard to come over to Omar and tell him to sit down or he would be removed from the courtroom. The security guard had a look on his face that I will never forget. He knew it was wrong. Meanwhile, the sentencing continued. The judge added to the 3.5 years with 1.5 years for the firearms charge, and then took 6 months off so that it wouldn't be disproportionate to the offending, giving Nate a starting point of 4.5 years. With discounts for it being his first offence, showing remorse for the firearms charge and a late guilty plea, Nate was sentenced to 2.5 years. This is 9 months for the firearms charge and a shocking 21 months prison for posting 2 links in the description of one video that only got a few hundred views.
My name is Omar Nabi. I'm a son of Shaheed Haji Muhammad Dawood Nabi. I've been arrived here in New Zealand in 1983. Been here for a good 35 years now. My father was an engineer back in his country. He left Afghanistan to tour the world. He ended up in Australia and then from then on come to New Zealand. I'm a victim of the mosque shooting and I've lost 50 of my family members and my father. From the word go and thinking back on it, the police obstruction and unfairly justified treatment of the Muslim brothers and sisters was inappropriate, including their approach towards me about trash talking Brendan Tarrant. I was asked why I was trash talking Brendan Tarrant. They came to my work. This made me think, and made me do some more research and found out 100 more things, one of them being the firearms license that was accepted within days after he applied for it. My protesting, I've done a bit of protesting outside the Bridge of Remembrance. Well, it was one of my first protesting sites. I encountered Nathan Symington. He crossed my path. And from then on we grew a relation because he had his own arising suspicions on this event. As I got to know him, he helped me pursue my own ideas, and I'd done a protest outside the Al-Noor, knowing Jacinda Ardern was going to show up. She was standing on our platform, and Nathan again helped me pursue my ideas and exposing the deceits and lies, mainly seeking accountability in the illegally arming Tarrant, which leads to Nathan being charged unfairly. And all that time, it was not called for at all. I was seeking for help to publicise the arising questions that are getting asked by my own community, within my community and outside my community. My local friends were asking me these kind of questions too. This whole interview is about for Nathan being unfairly charged. Even the judge knew I was there to support him. Didn't take into consideration that he was helping me and charged Nathan unfairly by saying we were glorifying Brendan Tarrant's actions, which we weren't. The chilling effects of bringing up this subject, you can't sort of talk about it. The government has sort of put a stop to the old talking about the event, bringing up the event, sharing the vids, sharing any kind of initial evidence to support that there is deceit and lies in this event. It's a real danger, and knowing you can be jailed for it, knowing you could be taken to court for talking about it. Most of my own community members feel scared. How should we approach it? I've done everything to my own means and shared a lot of evidence, shared a lot of events that are double standards. There's a lot of things that actually don't add up, and I will not stop pursuing what I'm trying to do. What I'm trying to do is make a safer community for us in Christchurch, in New Zealand, in this world, and exposing these people which are lying to us, even down to the governments that are stopping us from not being able to share the real events, the real things that are actually happening. Yeah, I won't stop looking forward and making this a safer community for all of us. Now, Nathan has got his own mind of knowing what's fishy, and in this event he's helped me, and I thank him a lot, because it's putting it out there, which I'm not capable of. He's dear to me as a good friend, to help me realise that, you know, the world is full of corrupt people which we need to expose. Nathan has got no history of trying to premeditate any kind of bad actions. He's got good morals, he's got good ways, and you can see by this in his actions. He's not a hater, a far out white supremacy terrorist, or any of these, because he's got a good heart, a good mind, and knowing he does it for the right cause. Yeah, Nathan is a good man for doing what he's done, and I support him. I support every single action that he's taken to expose these people. He's exposed a lot of people that I know that need to be exposed, and I support him in every manner. Yeah. I support Calvin and Hannah in every form as well, and I hope the court system are not there to punish them as well. That's pretty far out to think that, you know, people can go out and do people for things like that when they're trying to, you know, expose the deceit and lies that people are being fed. Yeah, that's unimaginable that people can do that.
Perhaps if Nathan had sexually assaulted young women and published his exploits, or played a part in a murder, perhaps those crimes would not offend the judge as much, and some leniency would be shown. And what about the police? They want to prosecute people so aggressively, yet they illegally armed Tarrant, even though he'd just arrived in the country, totally failing to follow procedures or the law, and issued him an arms licence without proper vetting. According to the police, this happened about 3 months after he arrived in New Zealand. But as many of you know, that appears to be some kind of lie. And the expiry date on Tarrant's gun licence shows it was issued 19 days after he applied for it. Perhaps Tarrant didn't receive the licence until November, like the government says. We just don't know. But we do have evidence of the issue date of the licence. This came to light when Paul McNeil, the owner of Aoraki Ammunition, who sold ammunition to Tarrant by mail order, came forward and released the police authorisation form from that sale. On it, there is the expiry date of Tarrant's gun licence. The expiry date is always 10 years after the date of issue of the licence. So it appears that Tarrant's licence was issued on the 19th of September 2017. That is less than 5 weeks after Tarrant arrived in New Zealand, and interestingly, the same day his application was entered into the New Zealand Police's National Intelligence Application Database. This really does make it look like Tarrant's gun licence was approved top down, and subordinate officers were expected to simply make it happen. That wasn't an overworked arms office cutting corners to get through the applications. That was Tarrant's application getting expedited. Seriously, New Zealand Police, why did Tarrant get special treatment? I think we should all realise that this question is not going away. Even if we are generous to New Zealand Police, it is still gross negligence. And that criminal negligence led directly to the murder of 51 people. No one is in prison for that. That's why Omar protests. And that is what Nate's video was about. It is, however, difficult to be generous to the police and only accuse them of negligence when there are suspicious circumstances at every turn. Even in this case, why would Nate's lawyer not email me the documents when instructed to do so? Seriously, why? Why did the court not publish the sentencing decision on the database like all other decisions are? Are they not proud of it? Why have the police still not been made to answer to public information about the unlawful granting of Tarrant's gun licence? It was either criminal negligence or accessory to murder. There's no other possible explanation. How can they simply decline to be accountable and then aggressively hold others to account? What kind of regime is this? Why did the Royal Commission suppress all of the evidence about the police for 30 years? Isn't covering up evidence of a crime being an accessory after the fact? Is it just not illegal when the government does it? This really is a bare-faced cover-up of the biggest and deadliest police scandal in New Zealand history. When did the New Zealand government become completely unaccountable? And why are they imprisoning people for any kind of distribution, even just linking to any part of a video that is completely legal in the rest of the world? Many people watching this realise what the obvious answer is. That it isn't negligence they are covering up with these actions, but something far more sinister. Unlike New Zealand Police, Nate's crime doesn't have a long list of victims. because Nate's crime was to seek, receive and impart information that was, as they put it, to counter the official narrative.
Yeah, that was fun. It was a fun interaction with the police. It was a good interaction. No one's feelings got hurt. Yeah. Freedom of speech is our precious talent. We will not be rid of it.
Be aware. Hey, be aware of people that are actually there to help you, and they're from the government, you know. We've been lied to on many occasions. We're getting lied to in our face, and people are taking it in, you know, taking in the old, we're getting lied to, oh, we can't do nothing about it, but we'll still take it.
On March the 15th, 2019, there was a series of mosque attacks in Christchurch where innocent people were murdered by a psychopath from Australia who felt no compassion, remorse or emotion as he removed people's lives from this world as if he were mowing the lawn. Everyone, including myself and my colleagues, watched the live stream of the attack that day and were shocked and stunned at the callousness and brazenness of such evil acts. Naturally, I attended the night vigils that week, sang waiata and spoke to the victims and people who were gathered and paid my respects to the fallen. Life continued, time passed, and I put it to the back of my mind and moved on. Fast forward to July 2020, I was walking downtown Christchurch by the Bridge of Remembrance and saw a man protesting on the street. He had billboards and signs with the Australian terrorist face and pictures of the guns he used. I stopped and asked him what his name was and what his protest on the street was about. He introduced himself as Omar Nabi and told me how to look him up on Facebook. He said that the police issued the Australian terrorist a firearms license. He said his father was killed in the mosque attack, and he believed that the mosque attack was orchestrated and part of a bigger social agenda. One of his billboards had a photograph of the police-approved ammunition sales order, which showed the sale of 2,320 rounds of ammunition to the terrorist and was signed off by New Zealand police. I've never caused harm, injury, loss, nor threatened anyone ever. I've never shared or posted the mosque attack. I do not glorify or seek out violence, but seek the truth and full picture. I made videos which confronted the wrong people who have social agendas and no time to bother with context. I've learned what the justice system is and the mindset of those who support it, and the police, the judiciary, the Crown, the media, and the public in general. It is true that I made mistakes, and in hindsight, I should have sought out moderation before creating content that clashes with local legislation. I have taken steps to learn from my mistakes and ensured that any illegal hyperlinks have been removed after having the law properly explained to me by a lawyer. But I feel that the law was selectively weaponized against me, and I have been held to the highest account. I hope that those who enabled and failed to vet the terrorist in his mission of murder will also be held to the highest account. The Christchurch mosque attacks are a terrible tragedy, and rather than shunning and turning a blind eye, we must implore, empower and enfranchise those who question the official narrative, especially those within the Muslim community who still question and seek closure. There remain unanswered questions which need to be properly and honestly addressed. Finally, I encourage everyone to be aware of and follow local laws and regulations, but not to be intimidated or threatened by local law enforcement or those who think that censorship and imprisonment are the way to solve problems. We should learn from history and be courageous and bold in our convictions so that justice can truly be served.